Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining me. Again, a great opportunity that we have. Steve Morse, thank you so much for joining me. The sessions, we do this and we have a chance to talk to so many great artists. We've excited to have you here. We tried to get you for a while. We've organized it. You're here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. And thank you for helping connect with the next generation.
That's really what this is about, Steve. I mean, we're trying to create the opportunity of having information laid down on how you started, how you built your career, and how you've continued this incredible tsunami of energy that you have in all that you have done. I go back to the early My Father's Place on Long Island to hear you guys play, and it was so inspiring then. And what you're doing now, where did it start for you? You started playing piano and clarinet, if I'm not mistaken, in the early days.
Yeah, actually, my first instrument was the song flute, they called it, a little plastic whistle that you got for 50 cents or 25 cents or something. The whole class, it was about kindergarten or first grade, and the whole class got him pretty much. And it sounded like somebody had just incited a flock of birds and were attacking their young or something. It was farthest thing from music you could ever imagine. And these were the days when, me as a kindergartner would walk to school, like blocks and blocks. Every kid did that. Families were more connected. It was a different time. It was back in the 60s. That's the 1960s, not the 1860s. They knew that my brother played clarinet. So they knew that we would have one sitting around. So I said, you know what? Looks like you'd be perfect for the clarinet. My head goes down because I was thinking drums or saxophone, right? So I played the clarinet. It was weird. It was like the first time in my life that I was just accepting mediocrity.
Yeah. Because
I just could not, the sound, it hurt when, but just a bunch of kids playing out of time and out of tune. And I had to quit the band. And it was the first time I quit anything like that. So that was weird. That was a strange moment for me. However, shortly after that, my brother brought home a guitar that he had rented and was taking guitar lessons. And I said, whoa, now that's pretty cool. And right about the same time, we had on our two television stations, and on one of them was Ed Sullivan. The Beatles were making their debut on Ed Sullivan. And the Beatles been playing gigs in Hamburg and were so sharp. They could just set up anywhere in 5 minutes and do a set that sounded like a recording, exactly like a recording. Yeah. And it just so happened that I was one of the first pirates. I had a cassette recorder that I'd gotten for Christmas and ran on batteries. And so I put it up to the TV like that. And it sounded so good to me. What they did come through that little speaker, and then through that little speaker, through that crummy little microphone, through that crummy little tape with all the hiss and everything, and then me playing it back. So it was like 12 generations away from any kind of quality we would think today. But to me, that was like having diamonds or gold. I could play this thing back in my room when I was supposed to be asleep. And just, wow, it's so awesome. It's the guitar was like. It was rock and roll, It was a hit song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and had great melody and great singing and incredible harmony, but it was rock and roll. And the drums. Just the most infectious beat. It was, and a lot of that was influenced by Chuck Berry and Little Richard, those guys. But Beatles, really made it melodic and made it mainstream so that everybody liked it. So that was a big part of it. So anyway, I said, I got to learn to play that guitar. That's the most versatile instrument. Yeah. Plus, I'd heard a guy in a not a flea market, but at the state fair, he was working one of those carny rides, and he was sitting back with his feet kicked up on a crate or something. I was waiting in line right next to him, and I heard he was playing. And I started, he's playing a bass note, he's playing some other notes, and he's playing a melody all at once. The guitar, that's it. As opposed, you know, with the clarinet, it was like just squawk. That's what a note sounded like to me. So I was transformed from, you know, quitting the school band because it sounded horrible to, wow, music sounds amazing now. You know, I have a recording of music that I own. You know, I didn't realize that I didn't own it because of the copyright laws or whatever. But I mean, I could play it anytime I wanted to. And now there's this instrument, the guitar, that can play rhythm, it can play melody, it can play solos, it can play both at once. So that pretty much cinched it for me.
Well, it sounds like for sure the guitar to a large degree chose you, because once you connected with that, it sounded like that took off like wildfire.
Yeah, it did. It went from my main goal in life was seeing how long I could do a wheelie on my bike to that and playing the guitar.
So what happened? Were you starting to take lessons at an early age on guitar? Who were you listening to? What influenced you other than the Beatles? What was the next step?
Oh, it was very humble at first. Group lessons for $1.50, I could be in on a group lesson, and they would have a bunch of people in a circle, and the guitar teacher would go around and tune everybody's guitars. The lesson's nearly over by then. And then he would give us a chord sheet with 3 chords. And I still remember the song. It was. And all I had to do was put 3 fingers down and strum. It was 5 strum, 6 strum, 5 strum, 6 strum. I said, I can do that. and the guitar teacher was so amazed. Oh my God, he can put 3 fingers down and go 5 strum, 6 strum. So I started having private lessons with him shortly thereafter. And he was kind of like showing me songs. And we were trying to form a band. My brother played drums. He also played, you know, guitar and clarinet, and he was a very talented guy. But for the band, he was playing drums. So my job was to learn these songs, but it was like $3 a lesson, you know. That was a lot of lawn work. And I just said, you know, maybe I can figure out these things myself if I can get a recording. Now that was a whole nother thing, was how do you get a recording? Because records, they were expensive and they cost money. However, you know, for 25 cents, I could put new batteries in my tape recorder, and I could go to somebody else's house and record their recording and then go home and learn from it. So I did some of that and sort of taught myself. But I was doing, you know, a typical song we would do was, and you know, we tried to do Beatles, but one of the first songs. Although back then it probably sounded a lot more like this. We didn't have digital tuners, but the big break for me. Once I got into that slightly swinging Chuck Berry stuff, and the Beatles really appreciated that too, then it was like, whoa, now it sounds good and it feels really good. That little bit of swing in there.
So Dave's playing, you're in this band. So were there other musicians? And now that you're playing and you're hearing music, you're starting to put some bands together in this craziness, right?
Yeah. The Plague. The Black Plague. Yeah. We wanted to start with a whole positive image thing, but you know, to a kid, anything that's sort of got a darkness to it appeals to him. That's, you know, like kids at the age I was, they tend to like metal and stuff, and that didn't exactly exist. However, our band got to play at the Teen Town, and the Teen Town got me in to see the Who when they were on tour, and they needed a routing gig, and they wanted to play at a club or something. And the Teen Town said, "Hey, you can play here." So I got to sit 3 feet away from Pete Townsend when they played this teeny tiny little hole in the wall. And I said, "All right, this is great. They're going to smash all their equipment now." At the end, I was 12 years old, or 11 or whatever. And, part of the appeal was the energy of smashing the equipment too. But they didn't do it because it was a routing gig, and they were probably making like $100 or whatever, gas money.
What a great exposure at such a young age. I mean, here you're seeing this, and you're seeing these great musicians play, and you're seeing the development of our industry kind of come to life.
Yeah, I think so. Everything was exploding, and a big part of it was kind of a put down of a band if they sounded like somebody else. Yeah, that's kind of a copy of this. The idea of going to a concert was you would hear 3 or 4 different bands, and you wanted them to be different, and you wanted to hear each one's personality. And now, like you go to a concert, it's like either 80 heavy metal bands or 80 country bands. There's a lot of similar, and things are grouped together in categories, and when music was exploding, for me, it was less, the categories were less defined, and mixing it up was encouraged.
It's kind of interesting, but when you think about the uniqueness of the bands that were out there and what was starting to happen, this was an age of discovery musically. So now you're playing, you're starting to develop these tunes. When did you think you were going to get serious with this?
Well, to me, that was serious. Playing at Teen Town was a serious gig, because there was people there. They were dancing and stuff, and I thought it was the coolest thing in the world. We had a Farfisa organ that plugged into my amp as well as my guitar, and my harmony microphone. So, can you imagine the intermodulation distortion that was happening? I can't remember. I think we did. On the Farfisa, and I would play some of the parts on that, and it was funny. Anyway, I thought it was serious, but it got more serious. We moved when I was just about to turn 13. We moved down to Georgia, and a huge difference in for a kid losing their whole support system, their friends and everything. And then going, then being a Yankee in the South and having long hair. And so I was a hippie Yankee that, I'm going, what are you talking about? I'm a guy. What? I'm not a Yankee. What? I had no concept that people were that there was geographical differences. Yeah. So I learned about that. I got bummed out and just, kind of hating life. But some guys that had a band, I guess they heard about me and my brother. We'd play just by ourselves, I had gotten some bass pedals and do bass notes, and we'd play instrumental versions of songs, just Dave and I, and do a gig. Anyway, some guys heard about me, and they had a band that already existed, and they said, "Hey, will you come and play some of that psychedelic crazy stuff?" I said, "What do you mean? That all that psychedelic crazy stuff you do?" And I went, "Oh, like you mean like the Hendrix and stuff?" They said, "Yeah. Some of these guys out at where we're playing, they were requesting that." And Hendrix was. that kind of stuff appealed to me because it was just, it was heavy. And at the time I had a Strat, and to get the distortion, I was plugging my little Fender amp into this Vox amp and, totally overloading the input with about 1,000 times more power than you're supposed to put into it. But it was distorting. And so that's how I got my gig of getting that heavy sound. There was no pedals that worked back then, and certainly none that I could afford.
And which band was this at that time?
Oh, it was Samuel Banyan, and he paid me like $13 or to go, and we play out at the military base near Augusta, Georgia. And at the military base, I got exposed to, wow, this whole new other geographical demographic, the West Coast guys. And so I was like, it was kind of like I was a cosmopolitan citizen all of a sudden. It was great because those same guys, we say, hey, come down to the city. We got a coffee house and the admission is 25 cents. And the guys from the services, they were drafted, they would all come down and they were like, oh, finally, you guys get it. You're playing some of this heavy music because we would, play, Spirit. What, I don't know if that's right notes, but stuff that they remembered, the California bands. And it was all our portal to learning this was a show that came on between 12 and 1 in the afternoon. It was called the Electric Lunch. And so, tape recorder again. I had a better tape recorder by then. Record that, and that's how I learned this stuff that we gotta do this. The guys at the at Fort Gordon are going to love this. And Fort Gordon was the military base. So that sort of became the audience I was shooting for was these young guys that were displaced, and I felt like they had nothing that they could relate to, and suddenly they would come and hear us every weekend down at the coffee house, or we'd go play for them at an official function. So there was a good reason to form different bands, try different things, and have different songs every week.
Yeah. So you're being motivated, and I love the ingenuity of you going out with your little tape recorder, just trying to find stuff that you can take in and absorb and learn from.
We knew that the music was out there, but that was the only way we could find it was to record it from that hour-long program. Yeah. And luckily the DJs, they had albums from all over the world. So they played Cream. And I when I heard that, I was like, oh man, that's too good. And
how did this lead to getting into Miami School of Music, University of Miami?
Well, okay. One thing I was born and bred to do was not exactly play guitar, but I was born and bred to be sort of an academic. My parents were, my brother was. So at a very early age, I was able to get into some college courses. When I was 16, it meant taking summer school, but I was into it. It's like, cool, I can take calculus and I can also take some music stuff. And so I was trying to say, well, I would like to be an electrical engineer and make some cool devices that would create music. And I'd been reading about the Moog synthesizer, and of course I was into electric guitar and effects. So, all right, electrical engineer. I didn't realize I wanted to be an electronic engineer, but so I was taking the calculus for that. And then the music, taking some theory and piano in case I wanted to just be a musical artist. So before I even got I never finished high school. It's a long story, but it had to do with not following the rules and having hair that went over my ears. However, I knew I was going to be okay because I knew how to do that stuff. And I already knew that everything that they were going to test me for to get into college. I already knew that stuff. And I knew that I knew it because it's a finite set of stuff. So I got into University of Miami without having had a high school degree because I was essentially just transferring from the college that would allow me to take these honors courses and stuff. So for my musical audition, because I still didn't know if I was going to walk in and sign up for the engineering thing or the musician. So for the music part, I made a recording of me playing. I think I played by. And then I did that was on the nylon string guitar, and I was playing with my thumb all hooked and crooked, and my left hand thumb over the neck like I played electric. And so I didn't have proper form because I never had a lesson with that. But I figured out enough to pick out the Bach beret, and I also wrote a piece on the nylon string guitar original piece. And I thought, well, I mean, I'm sure they hear all kinds of stuff. So I probably want to hear something original. Meanwhile, I can just hear those guys. Oh, can't they just stick with the program and give me some repertoire we recognize? But anyway, they let me in. Once I got there, they didn't know what to do with me, but they let me in.
Well, at that time, you had some players there. Jocko was there. Pat Metheny was there at the time. Danny Gottlieb, Bruce Hornsby. You had some serious influential players that were there at the time.
Yeah, it was growing at an exponential rate, but my first year was nothing like that. It was pretty. I think there were 6 of us in the jazz guitar department, and I was not a jazz guitarist. I was like the nightmare for the guys that were teaching, because okay, he's a musician. All right, he plays guitar. We have to take him. They admitted him. What do we do with this guy? He doesn't know anything about jazz. And then, but my goal was to learn the classical guitar. And the classical guitar instructor, Juan Mercadal, was like, we don't take beginners. This guy doesn't know anything. And so I didn't fit in anywhere. And it was a long, tough road that I had to do. And it involved a year of, my second year was all self-study back at the community college, where the tuition was negligible. And I studied this long list of repertoire and things that I needed in order to get to work with the maestro on classical guitar. And meanwhile, the jazz department grew to where when I came back for my third and fourth year, all of a sudden there's Pat Metheny. I'm jamming with Pat Metheny and guys like that, and thinking, wow, that's the state of the bar is pretty high. I mean, I can't even see it. These guys are playing great. So I learned a lot, and like drinking from a fire hose. It was just that amount of, what about this? Hey, let's jam. Hey, let's do that. And Jocko saying, let's play. Come on over to my place. We'll play. All right, awesome. Michael Walden, Narada. Oh, cool. Let's jam. And I was just inundated with things, but I loved it. I was soaking every bit of it in.
So was it meeting Andy West in the beginning that kind of started the concept of putting a band together? Is that kind of where Dixie Grit came in?
Yeah, we'd had different bands before I knew Andy, but when Andy came in, his personality really drove us to go for some weirder original music. Our keyboard player Johnny would get us gigs, like normal gigs, playing at a dance or something. But then when we went there, we had some covers. Oh yeah, we did. Anyway, but a few things like that we do that people had heard on the radio, but we did original stuff too. And it became like this template of my life where, the girls in the audience were kind of like, with their arms folded and kind of just looking disgusted. And the guys that were with them a lot of them were like the same way, but some of them were like, awesome, this is awesome. And that's the energy we latched onto was, yeah, you're one of us. Yeah, you get it. This music is heavy, man. It's part of life. It's the energy of life.
So these bands like Cream and Zeppelin, these bands are kind of like, the times were just kind of molding you in a certain way where now you start to focus on maybe putting your own project together with Andy.
Yeah, we had the Dixie Grit, but it turned out that every time we played a gig, the majority of people hated it because we didn't fit the mold, which was to play a dance. We weren't a dance band. We were unconsciously molding ourselves as a concert band, more like Yes or something like that.
Yeah. So
the band broke up. Andy and I were the only ones that wanted to keep going. We said, let's just do instrumental stuff as a trio. Yeah, that's awesome. And Andy said, we're the Dregs, so let's call it the Dixie Dregs. I laughed. That's funny. And none of us are from the South, but we're living in the South. So that's even funnier. So we doomed ourselves commercially with that, but it was worth it,
Well, but I mean, that's the power of music, to have fun and to do what we love doing. So now you're starting to organize the band. Where did the business organization skills come in? Were there ways of being able to say, now let's try and make some money by doing this here. Let's organize ourselves. Was there a plan that came with this?
No, but in school, I'd sign up for the course called This Business of Music for 2 semesters. And in that course, I learned about, BMI, ASCAP, CSAC, the publishing world, and how it's supposed to run.
Right.
Meanwhile, fast forward years later, 6 or 8 years later, when I'm in Clive Davis' office, trying to say, you can't change the contract. You signed a contract. You can't. We're ready to make our 3rd album with you. You can't take away the money and make it to where we can't do this. He says, yeah, we can. Look, go. Our whole 6th floor is the legal department. Go try and tell them I can't do it. And I said, well, can you sign a release? I just want to be out of this. Yes. So after learning all about the business, I had this sort of shooting myself in the foot instinct whenever somebody tried to, if they tried to not keep their word or anything like that. I thought that music was sort of like so sacrosanct, and so above that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That when I connected music and business together, I usually got disappointed. So I would say I was weak on the business end, because right after that, I ended up quitting the music business for some time. And I was literally digging ditches with a bulldozer, but I was digging ditches and cutting hay and doing stuff like that for other people. And after doing that for a while, and I think it's great, by the way, to put yourself in other people's shoes.
Yeah.
And see how things work from a different perspective. I started to see that, every job has things that don't feel great. It's part of life. I think I need to go back and get more serious about music and be a little bit more business-like about it.
Yeah.
So I learned the hard way. I didn't have the instinct. Some people do.
Yeah.
My instinct was more for, how can I make this work musically, or how can I make this sound? How can I hook up the guitar and these amps together to where I can make this cool stereo delay? And it was just constantly thinking about arrangements and music and writing and all that. But the business end of it deserves a lot of respect, because that's really where you make it or break it if you're going to do it for your career.
Yeah. So you're now, you're digging ditches, you're realizing the incredible humility and depth of what those jobs really take in. But in the back of your mind, you've got this music thing happening. So how'd you get back into it and then build up to where you are now?
Well, I got disillusioned and sort of thought I'll quit the music business, and I really missed it. And Phil Walton from Capricorn Records sort of approached me and said, you should be doing some music. This isn't right. And he sort of advised me about, here's the kind of things you need to sign in order to make sure you're out of the record deals and the contracts. And let's see if we can get you back working. He really helped me a lot with that. Anyway, I bought the old truck for very little money, the van truck that the Twigs had. And it was originally the Allman Brothers truck. So I started fixing that up and I was putting a generator on to run the air conditioner and everything. I said, you know what? I'll just get that bass player and drummer that I saw in a club, get them. And I've got some ideas about music that we can do as a trio. And even if we only make like $100 a night, we can find a way to keep enough fuel in the truck to keep going. So that it was very humble. We played little clubs, and just like with the Dregs, we'd play for 50 people, come back, play for 100 people, come back, play for 200 people, then that kind of thing. And you have to be doing something exciting to get people to come back and bring their friends. And we were excited about what we were doing, and we were getting good feedback about it. But it started very slow and humbly. And I went through that and kind of built up, did some albums, did very, very well. But it reached a sort of a tipping point when I was in Kansas at the time that MTV really was affecting things. And there was a big amount of pressure from the record company for Kansas, the songs we were writing, to become more MTV-like. Yeah. And I thought, oh no, this is starting to get uncomfortable. I'm not the right guy for this. I want the big, grandiose, instrumental, symphonic Kansas, not top 40 Kansas. Yeah. So, I've been flying to some gigs whenever I could. Built up a lot of time flying since 1975. I was a pilot. And one of my friends says, you know what, with your time, you could get a job at our airline. So that's a cool gig. I get paid to fly, come home, and I can record and do whatever I want. So that's what I did. So I quit again. And it was at a time when it was very difficult to get that job. So, I jumped through a lot of hoops, did a lot of studying, did a lot of training, and got the job, and enjoyed that. Wearing a uniform, being a regular Joe, and learning all that stuff. But once again, when I really got settled into a routine where I knew the job backwards and forwards, I knew what to expect every day, what was going to happen. I was kind of like, well, I do kind of miss music. Yeah. And one of my friends, Gary Rossman from Lynyrd Skynyrd, was coming into town, into Atlanta, and said, he called and said, Morse, we're playing. All right, great, man. Well, I'm a pilot now, so I cut off all my hair and everything. So I might come down and see you guys. I said, bring your guitar, Morse. I brought my guitar, and the road crew says, get up there. I plug in. Oh my God! Tried to get a sound, and then we played "Give Me Back My Bullets." They put me on the live album, and I felt this camaraderie again of, this kind of feels like this belongs. Yeah. So I was back and have been back since.
What's amazing is that you started meeting and interacting, you're networking, your name's getting around, it's really building up. So how did Deep Purple come into the game?
When I was playing during that time with my trio, Purple had been doing some recording in Orlando, Florida. And we played a gig in Orlando at the time that Roger was out, and he went to this concert. And so he remembered that. And also one of our Dixie Dregs songs was the theme song of a radio show it was a London radio show. They're called Tommy Vance Show. And it was just that much of it was the intro for 15 years. So everybody felt like they sort of had some exposure to what I was doing. But Richie had left the band. They finished the tour with Joe Satriani, and he did a great job, but he was, he wasn't wanting to join he was wanting to do his own thing, and keep doing his own thing.
Yeah.
So they were looking for a permanent member that could write and, sort of had his own voice. There was an exact copy of Richie Blackmore. We agreed to do 4 shows together. And before we even did the first show, we played for about an hour, just jamming together at the gig, when I met everybody. And it went really well. Everybody was happy and slapping each other on the back and said, well, let's give it a try. This is going well. Then after the 4 gigs, it's like, this is awesome. Let's keep going. Same way that I got in Kansas. It just was pretty organic, but there was an opening,
It seems like everything you did was organic. You kind of just trusted your instinct. You went with your feel, and you just allowed fate to a certain degree open doors for you.
Yes, but keeping in mind something my mom always told me is the harder you work, the luckier you get. Yeah. And that goes along with another saying that musicians always say, if you take care of the music will take care of you. And I would add one more thing. It's make sure and learn how to do business or else the music won't take care of you for long.
Well, I'll tell you something. 7 Grammy Award nominations, over 200 albums. You've done incredibly well. Now talk about flying colors. Now you meet up with this whole nother project of where this is at now.
Yeah, Bill Evans was working with Neil Morse. Now, Neil Morse has the exact same last name, but we're not related. But Neil Morse was doing a prog type band called Spock Spirit, and later he left that band, was doing his own thing. And Kerry Livgren, also Bill Evans was working with him. And he said, I wish you would get together and write something with these 2 guys. I said, that sounds great, because I admire their abilities, and sometimes it's hard to have 3 cooks in the kitchen, but it was fine with me. Unfortunately, at the time we got ready to do it, Kerry had a stroke. He just had a stroke and was recovering. So it was just Neil and I. So we got together here in the same room, and we recorded like an hour or something of music. And Neil works like a marathon sprinter, just keeps on moving. And I'm always saying, well, let's back up. Let's see if there's any other options here. Let's try an alternative. And Neil just zooming ahead. So it was a totally different dynamic for me, that working very, very, very quickly. But he is so good. Like his first instinct is, to me, is like 90% there. Mm. And so he and we hit it off really well with the writing. And next thing you know, he said, well, I'm always working with Mike Portnoy, and that I'd really like if we could do that. Yeah, well, in that case, I'm always working with Dave LaRue, my bass player, so let's do that. And so we all 4 of us picked a singer that Mike suggested, voted for a singer and a songwriter, and we got together. That was Casey McPherson.
So in the course of what's happening now, where you are, this pandemic has hit. It has changed everyone's life. No one's traveling or performing. What's your focus now on what you're doing?
Well, my focus is trying to do positive things. Like I've been doing a lot more things for other people. And I'm actually happy doing that. But I'm so busy that I almost don't remember what it's like to relax. I'm always thinking about, what about this? I need the parts for that. I need to do that. I need to do this. What about this? And so doing this intense multitasking all the time and working on recording at night. So I have these hours. My daytime gig is being the handyman, cutting the hay, baling the hay, putting it away, working on the machines, doing the farm stuff, and helping other people. During the nighttime, I'm in the studio and practicing stuff. So I've got these 2 personalities working pretty much at full tilt. I might start teaching and doing more of that kind of stuff.
That's the next thing. I mean, online teaching could be a whole nother way because what you have to offer is incredible. And there's a global market out there that wants to learn from you. But it seems like you've kind of balanced that engineering technology part of your life into the music life. All the gear that you have, even to the fact of flying airplanes. I mean, that's a whole nother skill base. But it seems like your discipline really is what the thread is in between all of what you're doing. You've got a very strong sense of discipline morals.
Yeah, you get that from your parents and from life and being observant about life, cause and effect of, you know, what kind of people do you like to be around? What kind of people do you admire? What are those qualities? I love being around successful people, and I like to analyze what propels them and what are the sort of the key things that make them stand out. And I'd say a common thing is having, you know, some kind of moral compass that really matters. You know, you have to believe in something bigger than just getting a paycheck.
Right.
And as a musician, doing original music, especially instrumental rock music, paychecks were not that common and they're not that big. So that was not your focus. Your focus was always on taking care of the music and creating something that made you say, yeah, that kind of energy.
What inspires you to write? What sparks that incredible creative process for you?
I almost put it in a spiritual category. Like I'll write something, but I generally have like 6 or 8 different ideas going at once. There's like things that you plant in the garden and they come to fruition at different times. And I visit them from time to time, but I'm never in a hurry about it. I can write for a gig. You know, I've written lots of TV music that gets used in the library, and that's neat too. But I think just wanting to express yourself, you know, if you're having like I was having kind of a bad day the other day, and I came and just picked up the guitar and was. Something like I don't remember any of it, but I will like make up a song just to sort of kind of soothe myself.
Do you consider yourself an organized person? I mean, with all that you're doing, is that a skill that you would say, you know, has been a part of your success?
Yes. Now, organized in the sense of the mad scientist who has a lot of clutter on his desk.
Right.
But I can sit there and point to everything, say, okay, here, I'm waiting on a part for that. That's back ordered. So that's sitting on standby. This over here, I'm actually still experimenting with this piece of music. Here, I've just about got done, but I'm not sure that that's good enough to stay in its present condition. And, you know, I just look around where my desk in my mind, and there's stuff everywhere that's pending or in process. And that doesn't actually freak me out. Some people are like, I want spick and span, nothing, no clutter, and I'm going to go from the beginning and finish it.
Yeah. And
I'm not that guy. I'm a lots of things. This is a possibility that I see. Well, I don't have the piece of the puzzle here, but I'm going to figure it out. And so I keep these ideas floating and sort of cluttering up my mind, if you will. So in that sense, it's not as organized as other people, but in another sense, there's lots of simultaneous layers, lots of CPU is being put into different things at once.
It sounds like you found your own order of things, which is, if I ask you, what motivates you?
Life. One of the biggest things in my life was, well, the biggest thing was having my son, my only child. I mean, I have stepchildren now too, in addition to Kevin. But that changed everything in terms of ordering what's important. And when he became a young adult, kind of on his own, I guess I sort of came back to reality and said, well, what is your job now? Yeah. And my job is, I think, to be an example. I need to be a better example for the rest of my life. I have more days behind me than I have in front of me. So the way that I go out of this world is going to matter to people. If you're in the media or entertainment business, you have a responsibility to make the world better than when you started. You have an immense responsibility. People are unconsciously being molded by what you say, do, play, write, or characterize yourself as. So I think that's one of the biggest motivations, is that not only have I got an interest and a job and a passion for music, but I've got a responsibility now. I mean, and it's an immense responsibility. I feel like our culture, that I'm making an incomplete sentence, but I feel like people in a position of having a platform need to realize how important it is, and to choose every word more carefully, every deed, everything that they push on people needs to be considered, what kind of effect that has.
Well, I must tell you, Steve, I think you've had an incredible effect on people. If you say there are, less years ahead of you, what you have done in the past has influenced and inspired people to such a high level musically, and you are a great example in how you have carried yourself through great humility. And the years that are ahead of you, I think, are going to be absolutely fantastic, because now the quality of what you're producing and what you're playing and what you're giving as a person and as a musician is at the highest level than I've ever seen from you. And I've been influenced by your playing for many, many years. So it's great to see that you are doing this at such a high active level, still busier than ever. This is an exciting place to be.
Well, you're an amazing guy, Dom, because you know your craft so well, but you're always seeing, I guess, some spiritual sort of concepts. The way you summarize things and the way you latch on to, I guess, the energy of why things happen. That's super important. And I hope to keep meeting more guys like you in a position of media distribution. Yeah. If you want to, we're entertainers, but at the same time, it is media. We have to help this medium.
I think you are, and I think you're helping this medium long when we're both gone. I think there will still be the effects of Steve Morse in the future that will influence people for generations and generations. So for that, you have succeeded at the highest level, Steve. Really, really very, very powerful. I thank you so much, Steve. On behalf of the Sessions, the Artist Series, we do this for this next generation to appreciate what you have given has been incredible, valuable information that will be used for many, many years to come. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me, Dom. And for everybody listening, thanks for your attention. Remember to support live music and find the positive energy wherever you can.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Steve. Thank you so much.
Dom Famularo here, the Sessions panel. This is so exciting. Thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. Click the subscribe button to be a part of what we're doing. The views help us tremendously. All of your comments, we read them and react to them. This is incredible. The support you're giving us is great. The Sessions panel, we'll see you real soon.